Welcome everyone to the fifth round of the European Club Cup 2025. On your screen is Anish Giri, the recent champion of the FIDE Grand Swiss, playing for the top board of Bayegan Pendik Chess Sports, and his opponent, the world champion Gukesh, enters in representing SuperChess. This is going to be an epic clash. And who knows, if Anish manages to win the candidates, this could very well be the next World Championship clash as well. Gukesh adjusts his pieces, the guests are ready there to make the opening move of the game. Both Super Chess and Bayegan Pendik chess sports have played really well until now and have full points. So this is a very key clash from the perspective of who will win the European Club Cup with just 3 more rounds left. The guest of honor makes the first move on the board, pawn to d4. And you can look at Anish there. He has a nice smile on his face. But where are Anish's team members? They are not to be seen there as Gukesh pulls back his pawn. We do not see Mamidyarov there. We do not see Richard Rapport. And a handshake. The game has started. And Gukesh is a bit confused. Should he make his first move or not? Yes, he does. Pawn to d4. And we are off. The arbiter slightly blocking the view until now. Anish Giri gets his knight out. Knight to f6. Gukesh has generally played the main lines with pawn to c4, but he could very well go even for the London system with bishop f4. That would be very interesting if he does that. No, he goes pawn to c4 here. And Anish Giri, of course very classical, would go for pawn to e6. And he pushes his pawn to e6 now. Knight f3 leads generally at top levels to Queen's Gambit decline territory. So Gukesh is in fighting mood. He plays his knight to c3. It's interesting to note that in this clash, it's Anish who is the higher rated player. 2759 ELO. Gukesh has dropped a bit. He's down to 2752. We have the Nimzo Indian on the board with bishop b4 and pawn to f3. The Zamish system. Gukesh actually taking a leaf out of Arjun's book there. This is favorite line of Arjun Erigaisi. Gukesh plays f3. Anish pushes his pawn to c5. Now d5 is played often. a3 is played here by Gukesh. And bishop c3 is the main line. Does Anish have some new ideas up his sleeve here? Yes, he does. He plays bishop to a5. And this is a very interesting move here by Anish Giri, keeping the pin and keeping the tension here. Gukesh now takes his time. Maybe he's already out of book. And that's interesting when you can get the world champion out of book in just 5 moves. Pawn takes c5 taken, well, in 30 seconds. So maybe Gukesh is not out of book. He was just recollecting his lines. But now you can see white wants to push the pawn to b4 and consolidate the pawn. So clearly black must take on c3. And Anish does so instantly. Bishop c3 triples the pawn in white's camp. So what is the compensation white has? Well, firstly, white has an extra pawn. Secondly, white has the bishop pair in the position. Anish quickly plays his knight to a6, attacking the pawn on c5. And now the main move here is queen d4, trying to defend this pawn and putting the queen in the center. But Gukesh is like, I don't need that pawn. I'm pushing my pawn ahead to e4. This means that you are giving up on one of your advantages, which was the extra pawn. And Anish quickly chops off the pawn, knight takes c5. And Gukesh's question to Anish is, where is your knight headed? Because if you go knight h5, then this knight can eventually get trapped after bishop e3 and g4. So Anish plays knight g8, and that too super quick. Gukesh down to 1 hour 9 minutes. Anish has 1 hour 30 minutes. Bishop e3 attacking the knight on c5. This is modern chess for you. The knight went back to g8 and still black has a great position. Pawn to b6. One of the key reasons why black's position is good is because of the knight's position on c5. It is an outpost. Knight to h3 played by Gukesh. Maybe he wants to reroute the knight to f2 and take it towards the center via d3 or e4. But this is already becoming a serious edge for Gukesh. Knight e7, not the most accurate move. You can chop off the knight on c5 with your bishop and try to fight for equality here with bd3 and pawn to f4. But Gukesh makes an error. He goes bishop e2. And now Anish can play his queen to c7, which not only defends the knight here, but also attacks the pawn on e5. And Anish plays it after 12 minutes of thought. Gukesh, look at his time. He has 53 minutes here. And after nearly 35 minutes of thought, he has played his bishop to d4. Wow, he's down to 18 minutes. His position is worse. Gukesh is in trouble here. Anish quickly brings his bishop on the diagonal here and Gukesh castles. Well, he needs to start moving quickly. He needs to make 26 moves in 16 minutes. That's not easy. And Anish castles, he's playing all logical moves. The e5 pawn is slightly weak here. Queen to e1. What is Gukesh up to? Maybe he wants to put his queen on h4 for an aggressive attacking position, but Anish is quick to get rid of the e5 pawn. If you don't have space, you don't have attack. Pawn takes pawn. And Anish comes back, chops off the pawn, queen takes d6. I love black's position right now. Each of the piece very well placed. Gukesh brings his rook to the center. He's threatening bishop takes g7, attacking the queen here. You can move the queen back, but Anish is in top form. He sees that e5, Gukesh has no good discovered attack. Bishop comes back to e3, attacking the queen. And now queen to c7. You could also play queen to c6, but queen c7 makes sense. Queen f2, and I think this move is Gukesh's way of saying, man, I'm going to take on c5 and I'm going to let you take with the pawn so that my pawns on the c file are safe. Rook a d8 and takes on c5. And now Anish can take back with the pawn to keep his winning chances alive here. But instead, he takes with the queen. And this is like giving up on all his edge. Because now Gukesh chops off the queen. Pawn takes. And now knight to f2. So the knight is going to d3 and is going to attack the c5 pawn. That's a weakness. And so Gukesh, who was in trouble here, seems to have gotten out of it. Knight to g6. And now can we play knight to d3 is the question here. Maybe the idea is knight f4 to trade, which is the reason why he takes on d8, rook takes d8, and now rook b1, attacking the bishop on b7. Anish plays his bishop to c6, slightly improving his position. The rook cannot come in on b7. But king f1, I like this move. Just getting the king into the game. Knight f4 played here, attacking the bishop on e2 and also putting pressure on the g2 pawn. Well, you can hear some of the voice coming in the background. That's because this recording is currently being done at an airport. Bishop d7 played. So bishop comes here. By the way, notice you couldn't have taken twice here because of back rank mate. So rook comes into b7. And Gukesh down to 1 minute 43 seconds. Anish has 17 minutes. Bishop comes to e6. Now one of the threats could be to take on d3 and maybe take on c4. So king moves away to g1 so that in the end there's no pin over here. And Anish pushes his pawn to f5, taking away the back rank ideas so that he could have actually won a piece. But quickly the bishop moves away to f1. Anish now trying to get the rook in. Yes, gets it on the 7th rank. Rook to d2. Black's position looks really good here, but Gukesh quickly attacks the two pawns on c5 and a7. Anish moves in with a check. Takes on e2, rook e2, and notice there's a mate in one threatened here. So you have to be careful. And I love it. Knight to d3. So you are attacking e5 and c5. Anish takes the pawn on c4 and Gukesh takes the pawn on c5. The position is intense. a7 is hanging. Black has the central majority. A check comes in. King comes up to f2. There's no mate here. The king can come to e3 or g3. He gives a check. Now Gukesh could go to g3, but the king is a bit awkwardly placed on g3. So he comes back king g1. Will Anish Giri take a draw? He has extra time on the clock, but he gives a check, and this is one of the big strengths of Anish. He might be better for the entire game, but once he feels that, oh, he touched the rook, he played it on e2 and left it back. Maybe some ambition is being born. No, it's gone. Rook e2 check, and Gukesh is like, I'm going to claim threefold repetition. Anish accepts a draw. Well, and a pat on the back from Ivan Sokolov on Gukesh, because although he saved a tough position here, draw is maybe a normal result, but a very good result for SuperChess, because Parham Maksudlu is clearly better there against Richard Rapport. And also in the end, we had another win on the last board, Daniel Darda beating Volodar Murzin, which means SuperChess scored an emphatic win over the top seeds Bayegan Pendik Chess Club, and Gukesh remains unbeaten in this tournament, moving confidently. He's played until now 3 rounds. He didn't play the first 2 rounds. He scored 2.5 points out of 3, and it'll be interesting to see how he fares in the last 2 rounds. For now, Anish Giri is in top-notch form, so a draw seems to be a very logical result. And as always, Gukesh puts back all his pieces, pays his respects to the board, and takes off. This is Sagar Shah signing off.